Okay, great. So this is the story map that I have so far. It's still, after I completed wireframes and did more work, I realized there's more that can be added as well, or refined, I should say. So in terms of the ones that I have, I'll start with register patient where they'll log in. Um, Typically they'll enter their user ID and password. They may have badge sign in, maybe biometrics, two-factor authentication. And then they'll access the register patient module by clicking on that module. And then they'll enter the patient information. They can fill it out or upload the patient information. They'll upload forms, so they can either fill out forms in the system or they can import the file electronically. And then they'll save the profile. So click on save button. And I know we talked last class about the autosave thing, which we can get to later, but I kind of put in autosave changes after X amount of time that the system does on its own.
Okay.
Yeah. So Kushal, I want to add one more thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, as you build a story map, right, you also validate it with the end users, right? So an end user
Right.
may discount some of those capabilities. That's where we were going. It's autosave is not something
Okay.
that we need to do it, right?
Okay. Okay. Great. Great.
So
Great.
think about it as you're building the story map, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is getting it validating from the users also and says,
Mm-hmm.
hey, is the registering patient performs this activities? These are the ways that we can implement. Is this all the possible solutions that you would like it in the system? Yes, no, right? That's where some
Mm-hmm.
of those questioning that we talked about comes
Mm-hmm.
into play to get the validation.
Right. Okay. So like for example, when we discussed the initial map, it would have been good for me to ask, hey, is auto save changes necessary, right? And you would have said, no, we don't need that capability, and then I would take that off the
Precisely.
map. Okay. Excellent. So now I'll move on to viewing.
Just hold on here, Kusal.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, if you go back to that, let's focus
Yeah.
on the registration, right? The
Okay. Yeah.
registered patient only section,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
then we can worry about other items a bit later.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Now you have a login and everything, which is fine. So can you tell me a little bit rationale for filling out patient information versus uploading patient information?
Yeah. So the
Or what's your
rationale for
thought
that,
process is? Yeah.
yeah. So the thought process I was going through is since it's going from high priority to maybe lower priority, I was thinking for the MVP, we have filling out patient information. However, as we expand, maybe we add the capability of as we're uploading the forms, it's able to grab the patient information from that. I don't know if that's a capability we want to implement in the future. If not, I can go ahead and take that out and we can just allow the PHNs to fill out the patient information, as that would be the simpler method of building the system.
Right. So generally, I mean, when you when you create like electronic system, right, for
Mm-hmm.
capturing the electronic information,
Mm-hmm.
so you want to avoid anything that's basically now anything that's now duplicate work, right? So
Okay.
either they fill out patient information or they upload the
Mm-hmm.
forms. The system has to process the form, right?
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has to process it, right? Otherwise, if I
Mm-hmm.
go in next time into the system, how would I even go look for that information or patient
Okay.
and so
Okay.
forth, right? So
That makes sense. Right.
you need to think in that terms of direction, in that way, from your
Okay.
standpoint. Now,
Okay.
I wanna hold here, Kusal. I
Mm-hmm.
think I got your where you stand on this one.
Mm-hmm.
I wanna look at
Okay.
somebody else's as well, the
Okay.
same section, okay? And
Okay.
then we'll come back.
Sounds good.
I can go, Herschel, if you'd like.
Okay, yeah.
Herschel, can you see it?
Yes, I can see.
Okay. My question is, while I was, working on the story map, and then we learned about wireframe and page flow and all that. And
Yep.
once you get more and more information, sometimes it is tough to connect dots. It's like it is a little overwhelming. My
Sure.
question is, when somebody lands to the dashboard, do I show it that, okay, that is the next thing that, because while I was making my wireframe, then I figured, oh, when you log in, you're going to go to the dashboard because that's the visual you will get. Should that be a part of here this here, that from the dashboard he or she selects this, or no, this is just an overview?
So you need to tell a story, right? So what is story map, right? It's a story. It needs to flow through basically
Correct.
from the user standpoint, right?
Correct.
That's what you are kind of like laying it out here. How the user,
Uh-huh.
if I'm a user and if I log into the system,
Mhm.
in your case, looks like you are taking them to the dashboard. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes,
Can
because when you
you?
log in, I was thinking, we talked about scenarios like user ID, password, biometrics, and password reset. If there is a problem with the password, so there is a link. Dilip had spoken about this in the
Sure.
last class.
Okay.
So then my logic went that, okay, once the person logs in, he or she will go see the dashboard first, from where they will go to the form thing. And then I figured out,
So,
and I made a wireframe for that in page
So,
flow.
so,
yeah, go ahead, Dilip. Yeah.
so Shanna, what you want to think about it is wireframe and a page flow is a little different than your story map.
Okay.
Okay. So think around story map is what activity user will do it. And in
Uh-huh.
order to do that activity, what task they need to perform, right?
Okay.
So in this case, right, when you're talking about the initial registration,
Uh-huh.
what activity task they will do it, right? They will
Hmm.
log in,
Mhm.
right? And then after logging in, they need to go to open a registration form, right? Now, how they transition from login to open registration form, that is what your page flow will tell you. But it's not an
Okay.
activity for them that they will go to the dashboard, right?
Uh-huh.
Because as soon as you log in, it automatically puts them to some sort of dashboard, right?
Correct.
That allows them to go through that. So
Correct.
think around that, right? So the dashboard sticky that you put it in here as part of user
Uh-huh.
stories,
Uh-huh.
it's about how user performs all the tasks, right? So it's the information flow, and then that's a page flow data, not necessarily user task.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
So can I jump in here? So this is about the registration, right? So have you guys thought about how would I register even a patient electronically in the system? So you need to have a little bit of vision on that front, how that would work, and then you can break it down basically into the story maps as well.
So when you
Um,
say electronically, Herschel,
so how if I give you a system and if
uh-huh.
I'm a user, how would I go and register a patient in the system? So that those are some of the things you probably want to ask user, okay? Because
Correct.
there could be some assumption if you know certain
Mm-hmm.
patterns on certain things, because there are ways up to there are certain patterns out there that you can use for building a system, right? Um, and you don't need to know that, but simply how do they see basically working? Now, user might be using 5 different systems, 10 different systems, and they might have some idea. Hey, I want to do as soon as I log into the system,
Mm-hmm.
maybe I want to search for an existing patient to see if the patient already exists in the system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, good point.
Um,
Okay.
right? And if the patient is not there, then my next step would be to go and register the patient at that point.
Got
Now,
it.
what is involved as part of the registration? Do you guys know, or have you guys discussed? I'm not sure where you guys were last week.
No, so Harshal, we just strictly talked about the story map itself, not
Okay, all
necessarily
right.
diving into detail on the
Okay,
procedures, right?
all
Because I
right,
wanted
gotcha,
them to build it based on the documents that they have it,
gotcha. Okay,
and today is the time to discuss that.
yeah, and they had the business process diagram. Dilip, I'm assuming everybody had the business process completed for the registration for
Yeah,
the what the system what it looks like once the system is implemented, right?
yeah, we had asked them, remember last Thursday?
Yeah.
So, but we didn't review specifically all the details into
Okay.
the Saturday's class or Sunday's class.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because some of this thing ties into that as well, right? As we know. But So the login part, I mean, it seems correct, but I think now we need to get down to the little bit further details on how do we break down
Sure.
that particular, or how user will do the work as well. Because those questions, based on how user answers, you have to create that could change your story map as well, or the flow.
So
Because
then Harsh,
so
Mhm.
you have the business process, right? So
Got
you
it.
have in mind, so the
Uh-huh.
register patient, right? So
Right,
that's a
right.
box. It's only one
Hmm.
box over there.
Right, right.
Now, how that process works,
Hmm.
you need to basically, because that is related to the system,
Sure,
right?
sure. Mm-hmm.
So
So then my question to you, Herschel, is that when do we get answers to this? Like, for example, when you say, oh, you talk to the user, but for this exercise, when do we get those answers? Like, if right now, are you playing
yeah,
the
I
part
mean,
of a
I
user?
can provide you guys if
Yeah,
you.
because then it
I would
helps
hope,
me.
because
Yes,
it's a
because when I
good
was,
start that you guys have. You guys
yes.
have a good start, right? You have high level
Mm-hmm.
modules like register
Correct.
patient, initial assessment, daily activities, right? Those are great things. Those are the boxes on the process map. Some of the activities users are doing.
Right.
Or you can use the use case diagram. Okay, they are doing initial registration, initial assessment, patient registration, daily activities, and so forth.
Right.
Now you
Okay.
need to get down to the detail level.
Huh. Sure. So then my question to you as a user would be, then how would you see yourself doing it? So that way, if once I have clarity, because when I was working on the user story map for team service coordinator, I came back to the same question as to, I didn't have more clarity as to how this would work. So then how do you see this online or thing going ahead? Like, how do you envision it happening in this system?
Yeah, so generally, if I'm a nurse, right, I pretend that
Mm-hmm.
I'm a nurse and I'm applying to register.
Mm-hmm.
I'm playing a role of nurse here, right? So I
Okay.
can explain you the process that I would basically work with the system, basically. So if I'm a nurse, I can log in because it needs to be secured, right?
Right.
From that standpoint. So I'm going to log in, you
Mm-hmm.
enter username, password, and whatnot. But as
Correct.
soon as I log in, the dashboard is good, basically that you can provide. Otherwise, I need ability to basically search a existing patient so that I can see, okay, I have this form in my front, in my hand. I need to basically
Okay.
type in their social security number, or their date of birth, or first name, last name, and date of birth combination.
Okay, so search.
Right.
Okay, I
And
get it.
if
Yeah,
I
okay.
search it, then I can find out, okay, whether this patient already exists. I don't need to register again.
Got it.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay.
If the
Search
patient is not
patient.
there, then I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
go and proceed with the basically, if a patient is already exists in the system, I can select it. I can update the existing information,
Sure.
or I can just create a new
Update
new
it.
registration right from there.
Okay.
And I'm going to
Okay.
input all the form details that is on the form. That's how I work, basically.
Okay,
That's
this will
part
be
of
done
the.
manually.
Yeah. I
Okay,
mean,
okay.
otherwise, well, what would happen is, if I'm a nurse, but I still need to find a patient, right? To basically, if I'm putting out, just uploading the form, system needs to process that. So system needs to run all the algorithms in the back end to basically
Okay.
figure out whether this patient exists or not. If not, they have to create it. But that's if something is wrong with the information, something is missing, then there is no feedback mechanism to the from the system to the nurse,
Sure.
right?
So
So
Harshal,
it's,
now,
yeah,
okay, sorry, go ahead, please.
yeah. Go ahead.
No, my question was, when you go to doctor's office nowadays, you see them giving you tablets and you fill in all the information. Do you also ask as a business analyst to your user that, is this some capability that you see your patients getting? It's still nurses' work, but
It's
they're
a still
filling
a
in all.
system, right? Sana, it's
Yes.
still a system, whether they
Okay.
access on the tablet or computer or laptop or even on the phone, right?
Sure.
It's still the same system that is accessible. So that's a non-functional requirement that you have.
Okay.
How do you plan to access? So you need to document create a separate story for that. If it comes across in the conversation with the
Okay.
user, right?
Okay.
That, hey,
Okay.
the system, okay, I nurse can access it basically on the PC, but then doctor might want to look at it, and
Right.
they might use the tablet. Now, if you are giving access to the patient from home, now in this case they are not getting access, but if they are
Right.
getting access from home, then that the same system needs to be accessible from the browser. So that's a
Okay.
non-functional requirement. What is accessibility type of requirement?
Okay.
Right. So,
Okay.
Shanna,
Uh-huh.
there are two key things that Herschel talked about, right?
Okay.
So as you interview Herschel, right? Herschel as a
Mm-hmm.
nurse talked
Right.
about it. So after login, right, you need to
Mhm.
provide a search capability. And Herschel say that you can do either by social security, by birth date, or by first
Hmm.
name, last name, right?
Mm-hmm.
So those three becomes a user story to underneath it,
Right.
Got it. Got
right?
it. Got it.
So as you converse it, you
Mm-hmm.
update it, and then you
Mm-hmm.
capture the non-functional requirement that Herschel told it, right?
Okay.
That
Right.
patient is not going to access the system, but nurse and doctor can access it, the information, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you need to have some sort of PC as well as mobile capability so that the doctors can do it on a tablet.
Correct.
So those are the information you capture it as you have those conversation with the end users.
Okay. So then, Dilip, where does that captured information, which is non-functional, go?
Those are part of the stories, user stories. So
Oh,
you
so
might
just
have
user stories.
yeah,
Okay.
these are
Okay.
part of the
Okay.
user stories. Now, that accessibility is a common
Mm-hmm.
across the system, right? It's not
Okay.
dependent on any module,
That's right.
right? I mean, once you have system that is accessible from anywhere, so you just create a separate user activity type of thing or non-functional
Sure.
requirement grouping. It's just a
Mm-hmm.
grouping, right? All we are saying is a grouping.
Correct.
So you can put another yellow tab saying
Mm-hmm.
accessibility
Okay.
requirement
Right.
and put those type of stories underneath that or non-functional requirement if you don't
Yeah.
have that many. Yeah.
Yeah, or you can
Okay.
also like it depends on how we categorize, right? Herschel
Mm-hmm.
say that like there are multiple ways you can do it. You can also do it within the same one persona and says, hey,
Yep.
this persona is going to be able to access this from tablet as well as from PC. And then you
Yep.
add that as a story, and then you just other persona just says they will use the same level of access as the nurse I have it to access the system.
Mm-hmm. Got it.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. Then my question, Herschel, as a nurse, would be: do you upload the documents, the medical documents that the patient brings at this point?
No, because the only thing nurse has, right, registration wise is their medical form, medical application form. That's the only
Correct.
thing nurse has. There is nothing else.
Right.
There are no financial documents. They don't even come in
True.
the picture
True.
at this
No,
point.
no, no. I
So,
meant the other documents. Like if you're bringing your child, and then you would have some X-rays from previous doctors or some data from previous doctors or some files, because not necessarily everybody's coming there for the first time, like first time seeing a doctor. So do you talk about that right now, or no? You just take the registration form and just register the patient.
registration form is good enough right now
Okay.
because right now the patient they need to validate verify that patient already there or not or
Okay.
what's the status, because remember they are trying to get approval for BCMH. So they are coming their first time, and then so most likely they are coming their first time, and they may not even have anything other than only thing they need is a medical application form signed
Okay.
by the
Got it.
doctor or service coordinator or somebody. Yeah.
Sure. Sure. Sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, but Shanna, to answer some of the things that you're alluding to,
Mm-hmm.
is this is the time when you ask the users, right?
Yep.
And you
Mm-hmm.
use all of those interview techniques that we talked about to ask it, right? So in this case,
Right.
you just say, hey, do you anticipate the patient to bring in any other electronic medical records with them,
Yep.
Oh,
right?
okay.
And
Very
that's
nice.
how you
Okay.
ask the question. And then you
Mm-hmm.
get the response back from a user. Say, in this case, Herschel said, no, all they
Hmm.
care at this point is the patient information so that they can register them as a BCMH patient.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you, Dilip.
Yeah, so I see that you have a search patient capability under initial assessment, but now you know where it ties to, right? How
Yes,
it
yes,
ties.
yes, yes,
So
yes.
that part, because if I'm a nurse, I'm going in the system, I'm going to go search existing patient first
Yes,
to see if
that
the
makes
patient is
sense.
already exist or not.
Yes,
So
yes,
yeah.
yes. What you're talking about is to check a duplication record versus my initial assessment was more like he's gone to the nurse, now he or she, and then they're looking for, okay, let's look at who this person is that we're talking to. But I get your point. Yes.
Yeah, because see the flow wise, right? So
Yes,
nurse
no, makes
gets the
sense.
form and
100%.
from there, yeah.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, now just one observation here. You put the patient ID, right? So that's where you ask the question is, are you expecting nurse to know all the patient's ID or the patient know their ID? Most likely not, right? They're going to give either the
Mm-hmm.
name, date of birth, or social security. So this is where you ask the question to the users and
Mm-hmm.
says, what all other criteria that you will utilize it to search for a patient.
Oh, excellent point. Okay. Got
Yes,
it.
I think most likely nurse will utilize the ID. Now, do you know what the patient ID or how it's generated and so forth? So those are some of the conversations you want to have with the
Okay, makes
users,
sense. Yes.
right?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. So Sana, we can stop here. Let me
Okay,
see, Jayashree,
sure.
if you have if you, I know you were out last week, but if you have anything, we can certainly review that.
No, I'm sorry, Harshal. Like,
Okay.
I was busy, so I just got like, I just
Okay,
saw
no,
the
no worries.
recording one
Yep,
time. Yeah,
yep.
I will
Okay,
check.
okay. So,
Yeah.
but you need to work through then this process, right? I mean, what we
Yes.
are just
Yes.
discussing here.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
it's just,
helping me because to
yeah.
understand what I have seen in the recording.
Okay, okay. All right. So we can go back to Kusal. I think if you want to pull up yours, and we can take a look at it, see if there is
Yes, I can
anything
pull
different
up mine.
from there.
Let's see. Let's go back to that.
Now, definitely, we don't want to go anything further than registration. Okay, so we will focus on the register patient only. Now, Kushal, I think you have to, looks like you need to revise
Oh, am
yours.
I sharing
No,
what?
you're sharing yours, but
Mhm.
we strictly going to focus on the register patient process, right?
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So I know you have other things, but unless the first portion is correct, we cannot.
Okay.
Yeah, and we might have
Okay.
to modify other things.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay. So do you
accordingly.
want me to stick with the story map or move on to like the page build
So
or?
story map. So your story map, you have fill patient information, but you
Mhm.
need to add the search capability as we discussed, right?
Ah, okay.
What
Okay.
will,
Okay.
because
Right.
that will be critical.
Okay.
Creating a new patient uh, uh, portion basically,
Mhm.
or search for existing patient, or search
Okay.
patient with different criterias, right? That we talked about.
Right. Right.
You need to add that in as part of the story.
Okay. I'm just gonna add a
Uh,
quick note for myself.
yeah.
Add patient search.
Yep. Without that, your map will not be complete. Okay,
Right.
for the
Okay.
registering the patient.
Okay. Because I had let's see. I think I had patient. Oh, I actually don't have. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I have it under one of these. I'll find it and then I'll just tag it
Yeah, you have
over.
search by case ID and those things, but those
Mm,
are kind of like a record encounter, right?
right,
Again,
right, right.
so there is a search capability for the record encounter. Yes, so you
Hmm.
need that. What
So I need
encounter?
that not
Yeah,
only for the initial assessment, but really for every single
every
flow, there
single
should
one.
be a search
Yep, yeah, there
patient.
should be
Okay.
either search or some type of listing, some way of basically giving user
Hmm.
ability to find the existing ones,
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah.
right?
And after, and I'll talk about it more once we get to the wire flow, but after I made the wire flow, I think I should have gone back and refined this story map a bit more because
Okay,
it gave me a clearer picture on what areas need to be focused on.
okay.
But is that so the story map is like ever changing, right? So is
Yeah,
that
yeah, it changes all
yeah.
the time. I mean, it's a
Okay.
high level, very high level, right?
Right, right. Okay. Okay.
In wireframe is you are zooming into one story,
Mm, mm.
or basically
Okay.
linking the story map items, basically individual
Right.
user stories into the
Okay.
wireframes.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Excellent.
Right. So, Kushal, as you
Mm-hmm.
go through it from a story map to a page flow to a wireframe, right?
right.
Mm-hmm.
It should generate a whole bunch of questions for you because you don't
Right,
have
right.
that, right? So you should utilize that information to go
Mm-hmm.
back to the user, then converse it and say, get the clarity around it, right?
Right,
So
right.
one of the things you should do it is, as we talked about, right? Harshal talked about, hey, you missed the search, right? So
Mm-hmm.
you should paraphrase at this point the entire process that how you think it is going to work in the system back to the
Okay.
user
Yeah.
so that they can clarify, hey, no, not this way, but this way type of thing.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. So after the patient the PHN logs in, right?
Mhm.
What I've basically set up is a module page or a dashboard where they'll click on the register patient module, right? So I think I need some clarity in terms of where adding the patient search will go. Because I was under
So
the assumption that they're registering the patients, so they're not yet in the system.
So no, as soon as they log in, right, it's
Mhm.
part of the secured area. So
Mhm.
so in your case, what you just described is
Mhm.
they will see some type of dashboard type of thing, and
Mhm.
where they will see different type of modules they can access, whether
Right.
it's a registered patient or view calendar or whatever it
Yeah.
is, right? In your
Okay.
case. Now, as
Yeah.
soon as they click on register patient,
Mhm.
what the user, basically nurse will do is they should be able to
Mhm.
search for a patient right away before
Okay.
registering, because they want to
Okay.
know whether this guy is already in the system or not, because
Ah,
there might
okay.
be
The
same
duplicates and
people,
stuff
went to
that we were
three different
talking.
people,
Yeah.
and they all have entered, it will create duplicates, right? So that's the
Okay.
reason we
Right.
said, okay, they would, nurse can, initially nurse can search by either social security number or date
Mhm.
of birth and first name last name combination type of
Okay.
thing, right?
Okay,
So
that makes
they
sense.
can
Okay.
see, okay, this person doesn't exist. Now I can go and proceed with the registration part from there.
Okay. So could we potentially have that in the register patient module where when they are typing in filling out the form with all of their information, if the patient's already there, it will notify them that hey, this patient already exists in the database because they'll
So,
need to put in identifying information such as date of birth, social security, or what it may
so
be.
that would be too late, right? It's kind of like a
Okay.
nurse's times are very valuable, right?
Right,
Because they
right.
have other activities. They are not just responsible for
Mm,
entering the patient. So they want to
right.
know
Okay.
upfront before
Mm-hmm.
even they
Mm-hmm.
proceed with registration, fill out any forms. They
Mm-hmm.
want to know, okay, is this guy exists in the system or not? If it's there, then they will stop the process right there or do some
Okay.
different thing, basically.
Okay. So essentially, we'll have them click on the module. It'll take them to the patient's search, right? And
Yep.
then they'll enter in the patient's identifying information. And if it's not there, then it will take them to the filling out the patient information.
Then they can decide to proceed further. Yep. If the
Okay. Okay.
patient is not there, then system
Mm-hmm.
will basically system needs to have ability for
Mm-hmm.
them to create a register a new patient. Now, as part of the
Okay.
registration, you have here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Enter patient info. That's
Mm-hmm.
the only thing you have.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is that only enter patient info, or have you analyzed the form further? What things? Because when we talk about stories, right? So
Mm-hmm.
stories are generally in the agile world needs to be implemented between 3 weeks or 2 weeks type of thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you are handing out to one developer, right?
Right.
One story generally,
Mm-hmm.
then they may not be able to complete it in 3 weeks. The create
Ah, okay.
registration. So you need to
Right.
identify each different what information is on the form. So all those
Okay.
details
Okay.
you need to list it out here
Right,
as
right.
part of
Because
the
I did
story
that
map.
on the wireframe. So it would make sense that after the wireframe and I have a clear picture, to then come back to the story map and put the specifics about what
Yep.
exactly is going to be fillable in that area,
Yes,
right?
yes. Yeah, what
Okay.
sections, right? You don't need to
Hmm.
put like each individual fields, but what section? Like
Ah, okay.
demographics, you have insurance
Right.
information, you might have doctor information,
Mm-hmm.
and there are different sections, right, on the on that
Hmm.
form. That's how you need to analyze the form.
Okay. Excellent.
Because assessment, if you look at the assessment, it has like 30 to 40 pages.
Yeah, it's a lengthy
So
assessment. Yes.
there is no way they can complete, even if you throw 50 developers at it, they're not gonna be able to complete on certain time. So you need to break it down in the individual
Okay.
chunks from your
Okay, that makes
standpoint.
sense.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, excellent. So
Okay. So
I'll modify the
yeah.
story
Yep.
map
Yep.
based on our discussion and make it more thorough. That way, when the developers get it, they know that this is
Yep.
what
Yep.
we need to work on in chunks or
That's right.
sprints.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Right.
Okay.
That's the whole purpose here, right?
Hmm.
Creating the
Now,
stories, smaller stories.
yeah.
Okay.
Also, as you do those wireframes or inquiries that Harshal talked about, right? You break
Hmm.
it down into different components, whether it's insurance information, demographic. You should also ask, is there any rules that you need to apply to
Yep.
those
Yep.
things,
Yep. Those
Okay.
will
right?
be part of the details. Yep. Yep.
Right.
Those are the
So
Right.
part
you
of the
have to
individual.
Okay.
Yeah.
specify those things as part of the story details as you go through it.
Okay. Okay.
So for
Okay. So.
example, can I create a patient registration without filling out all the details, all the
Hmm.
sections? Like that's just a
Hmm.
simple rule. Because if you
Right.
get a medical application form and it has only patient demographics, no insurance, nothing, Is a nurse able to create the patient without those things? Those are the questions you need to ask.
Right. What information
Is
needs to be
must.
filled out
Yeah,
in
yeah.
order to proceed
Yep.
without the system stopping
Right.
you and saying, hey,
Yep,
this
yep.
needs to be this information is missing, we cannot proceed until it's filled out.
That is correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Yep. So now how you see, right? So you had the
Yes.
business process, right? That you created. You had a
Right.
registered patient only, one box, right? That is part of the system. I'm hoping that you guys had,
Yes.
once you revised it, that is kind of like a part of the system.
Right.
Now we are zooming into that basically and creating the wireframe for registered patient. Okay. And that how that works, that's where your conversation with the user. Okay, can you describe me the process? And user will tell you, hey, I need to be search first existing, and these are the ways. And you also basically have laid out the basically different things like entering the patient information. As part of the entering patient information, you have all different insurance, blah blah blah, all demographics, all kind of stuff they will be entering. So you are just breaking down further that basically one thing.
Excellent. I'll go ahead and refine that for next time.
All right, sounds good. Okay. So I just saw Girija jumped in as well. Girija, do you have, because we just discussed on this one, Girija, and to see if you want to show yours, if you have stakeholder map, sorry, not the stakeholder, but the story map, then feel free to go ahead and share.
Sir, excuse me. I just went for a trip with my students. I'm sorry. So I wrote it in a paper. I did not have a laptop. Is that okay if I share the paper written?
Okay. All right. Okay. So just keep it. Then we can just watch the video. Okay. Because you need these things in the electronic format going forward. Everything.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah. So that we
So I
can
finished it. It is in a paper format. That's why.
Yep. Understand. But take a look at the video and see what you need to tweak based on the discussion that you missed.
Yes,
okay?
sure.
Right. Okay. All right. So let's. Sana, does it make sense to you guys, Jayshree? I'm hoping.
Yes, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
My question, Herschel, related to other stuff, like if once you go as a BA, every company will have a different format that they follow, right? Do they do some knowledge transfer? Do they tell? I mean, do they explain how it works, or?
Well, so when you say different format, can you elaborate what you mean?
So, for example,
by
some people are working on Visio, some people are doing flowcharts. So I don't know because I've never worked as a BA.
Yeah, the companies generally have standard tools. So most of the companies use Visio. So yeah, you can easily, they have professional or enterprise license as well. Licenses are expensive. They don't give out to everyone, but typically business analysts should have access to that.
Okay. And then
if not, you can just pick something, because these are just some of the tools available on the internet, right?
Okay. In my head, I was thinking, like, how do you get up to speed to these things? And, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of homework that goes as a BA, but just a question that came up in my head.
Yeah. So what you're going to start seeing it though is in a bigger company, right? In a smaller company where you don't have so many people, probably you're going to see it like it's a desktop version type of tools like Visio or things like that. But now what I've seen it lately, it's kind of much more broader. There's people do use it like things like Figma or Lucid Charts or more sophisticated smart draw type of tools that allows them to do a collaboration on a real time, right? Over the Zoom, like it's where there are multiple people, right? So Lucid Sparks allows you to have multiple people log into the same file and perform edit enhancements at the same time.
Oh, wow. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
And since we're on things like you mentioned Figma, right? So I was curious while I was making my wireframes, I made it in PowerPoint instead of Figma, but I was curious whether as a BA, are we more likely to focus on low fidelity wireframes, or are we does it range, or what's that looking like? Because I want to that way I'm prepared, because I can definitely be better at Figma, but when I used it in the past,
So
it was a tedious
typically
process
as a BA, You do
Mhm.
it low fidelity.
Mhm.
If it is a big companies, right? They do
Mhm.
have a UI UX designer who will
Oh,
actually
okay.
take
Right.
your low fidelity wireframes and create a high fidelity, and then you review that with the users,
Okay.
look and feel, right? A lot of times they do not only just the wireframes, but they do it like it's kind of a mock, like Figma and the others allow you to do a mock development.
Mhm.
Well, there is no back end, right? It just click and feel. The user can see it and navigate through it.
Right. Okay. Okay. Great. Yeah. That puts a clear picture for the BA's role instead of what in terms of the wireframe. Because I didn't know if I had to brush up on like Figma skills if I want to be more successful
I mean,
BA.
more you know is good, but then IT is a vast field, right? So
Right. Right.
now you're focusing on analysis side of things.
Mm-hmm.
The main goal here is to communicate with the user. And so that
Mm-hmm.
they
Okay.
understand how now you need and user, I think most of the time they understand that this is not like a final product or anything, because
Right.
developers will take a look at it and they say, nope, there is a better way of doing these things.
Mm-hmm.
So that there is a search, so that they or graphics designer will take a look at it and say, we're gonna have different ways than the dashboard, basically how
Right.
they get
Okay.
to there. Yeah.
That makes
So
sense. Okay.
yeah, yeah, but those are minor, basically design things,
Yeah.
and it will always change as it
Mm-hmm.
goes through the different phases of life cycle,
Mm-hmm.
um, from requirements to the design to the even later stage as well. So
Excellent. Okay. Thank you.
yep, okay. Um, so let's go down to the second item. Then hopefully this one makes sense. So we can take a look at see what you guys came up with the page flow diagram.
Make sure I'll submit the homework on Saturday class.
Yes, just be ready. I mean, what the video definitely, I think it will, because you have to refine it based on what we discussed, first of all,
Okay.
and
Mhm.
then create it in the tool. I would
Okay.
suggest you pick any tool that you feel comfortable with and just stick to it. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So Sana, you want to go with the
Sure.
page flow diagram, see
Sure.
what you have. We're not gonna.
Sure.
I'm sure there are some revisions, but we just want to see what you came up
Sure.
with, right?
Sure.
Uh,
Give me 1 second. Yep. Can you see it? Perfect.
it's coming up.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So this was based on what we learned from Dilip last class.
Okay. All right.
I started with the login. The user persona here is the PHM nurse.
Okay.
We started with the login. So then there would be user ID and password. Successful login redirects to the dashboard. A failed login would result into a error message.
Okay.
And then there'll be an option of password reset.
Okay.
From login, I was thinking about registration forms. So then I had one line which went from login to the dashboard,
Okay.
to from where the person selects forms to registration form, to entering detail to creating patient profile. But then the subset made me think that in the dashboard, you would see probably things like schedule, I'm a
Okay.
nurse, then timesheets, nutrition, nutrition. This is based only on the BCMH process till where
Okay.
we read the immunization, the patient data, and reports. Within
Okay.
that, I could think of like when you're scheduling, you need to add and view an appointment. You could have a daily, weekly, or monthly view.
Okay.
When I'm a nurse, then I would need daily or weekly logs. I should be able to view and edit my entries, submit my
Okay.
hours and mileage. Under the nutrition point, I put nutrition assessment form, like to figure out where the patient stands, follow-ups and monitoring, some kind of a meal plan or guidance.
Okay.
For the immunization, I put patient immunization records, their consent form for immunization, upcoming or vaccines that are due, or what am I supposed to give, some
So
information there.
where did you
Yes.
get that? Is that something that you thought of it or just made an assumption?
So I was thinking, for example, immunization. So then I'm thinking when I go to my doctor's office, I was putting that in perspective, that they would need patient immunization records.
Okay. But
And then,
remember that these are county people, right? So all they are doing is conducting the basically in reporting to
sorry,
the
your voice
health
broke. What
department.
did you say, Herschel? What are they conducting?
Oh, the immunizations on the patient.
That's true, but when you are giving immunization, wouldn't as a protocol you need their consent to give immunization? Wouldn't you want to check?
Yes. So there is a now let me just think here, because
Sure,
if
sure.
I'm a nurse
Uh-huh.
and I'm because I'm a PHN nurse, and my workload is focused on the public health nursing, right? So
Correct.
PHN side of thing, registering the
Sure.
patients, initial assessments, conducting the assessments, and those things. Now there are other nurses who can conduct the immunization as well, but they might be different than the PHN. So you just need to think it through, who can see what,
Okay,
basically.
then let me ask you the
Uh,
question as a user, like Dilip
yeah.
thought. Do you see the PHN nurse doing this?
The
Taking
PHN
care of
needs a
immunization?
visibility. They need visibility on the immunization records. They should be able to see it,
Immunization records.
but they
Okay.
may not be able to conduct or anything else for the immunization.
So
So
they
yeah,
will not be actually giving
giving out.
vaccines.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
correct. That's
So
correct.
they just need the
Ability
patient
to view the records as part of
records.
the
Okay.
immunization records. That's all. Like
Perfect. Okay.
what is
Then they don't
given,
need to
because
check the inventory. Okay. Got it.
yes, because they when they go do initial assessment and assessment, mainly the reassessments, right? Every 6 months, they
Okay.
can see, okay, this immunization is already given to them, okay, as part of the program, and so forth. But they may not necessarily conduct the
Okay.
actual
Got it.
immunizations. So
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. That makes
but
sense then.
the dashboard idea, I mean, I can see it. It's so your thought is, it's kind of like my homepage, right?
Yes.
My nursing view, and I can
Correct.
see all this different scheduling, my daily activity for timesheets. My nutrition is a different program, so I would leave that
But
out
the
from there.
BCMH had a part of nutrition, and it says in bracket BCMH related.
So that is part of the assessments. So if you have, I don't see assessments here. Okay,
But
assessments
okay,
and reassessments here.
assessments. So
Where are the assessments?
sure, my thought was that when a person, hold on 1 second. Schedule timesheet.
So you have it
Patient
at
data.
the top, right? From the form, you have
Yes, yes,
immunization, nutrition, and assessment forms.
correct. So my idea was that when a person comes in, once the nurse clicks the forms and the data that he or she enters would be a part of the patient data or assessment form, and that might come under the patient data where.
So the form concept, right? I mean,
Uh-huh.
it's on the paper, printed forms or something like that. When you go digital, right? I mean, these are different modules. So it makes sense to me. You have schedule, timesheet, immunization, patient data or patient information,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you call it, and reports.
Mm-hmm.
But you need to have assessment module, basically, where they can go and look up the existing assessments or look up the patient. They might be able to search the patient and see all their assessments from there. How do they find the assessment, right? How they're gonna find? So if I go on the dashboard here,
Uh-huh.
and if I go on form, what do I do from the patient standpoint or assessment standpoint?
I
How
was.
did you? What do you have in mind? I guess.
So for example, if I were to go here, because this is where my dashboard came from,
Okay.
so then I thought maybe once you're looking for a patient
Okay.
and then you start putting that information, then
Okay.
that would have some drop downs or some, like when you open, like say Herschel. So once I open Mr. Herschel Patel, then that will give me all the links inside.
What if I have million patients in the? Is it gonna be feasible for me? That's the reason. As a nurse, I want to be able to search by specific things, right? By social security number or first name, last name, and date of birth. Those two items, basically.
Okay,
So,
okay. So
so I
you're
think what Herschel is alluding here is similar to schedule, similar to immunization. You have a high level for assessment, and then
Yep,
that could run into give me ability to search patient,
that's correct.
got it.
and then
Okay.
give me ability to view their existing assessment
That is
or
correct.
add a new assessment.
That's how a
Okay.
nurse would see it in your
Got
system.
it, got it. Got it. So then this will be, okay, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, search patient, right? So
Yeah,
you have
yeah.
view or search or view patient, right? That's what you have, and then then view related assessment or create new
Yeah,
reassessment
that makes
from
sense.
there.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. Okay, okay, okay.
Or if I am on a patient information, I need to be able to go create the assessment right from there. Why would I go back to the dashboard and search again and come back, right? So you just need to think it through. If you are duplicating a lot of things, does it make sense? Maybe you give, because everything is related to patient, right? Everything is for patient except the timesheets and schedule.
Correct,
Immunization is
correct.
for patient
Yes,
data is for
yes,
patient, assessment is for
yes.
patient.
Mm-hmm.
Then you provide them a single search, no matter where they click. You take them to the search patient, because that's what they need to do first. Which
Okay,
patient,
yeah, that makes sense. Yes,
right?
yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
then you take them directly. So you might have a main dashboard, but then you might have other dashboard for the patient related information. I don't want to
Okay,
complicate
got it.
too many things, but I
Yes.
think that will eliminate a lot of duplicate work
Okay.
for nurses, extra clicks for the nurses as well.
Sure, sure. No, makes sense. Okay, okay. All right. So, my then Herschel question would be, when you do module, this is like an overview, high level stuff.
Mhm.
Do we start including those modules here as well, or that will be a later story? Or how does the page flow work? Like, I keep adding to this, right? Once I have more information, like for example, if I went to assessment, then if I get more information, I keep adding to it.
So page flow, what I would suggest from my standpoint, I'm not sure, Dilip, what you explained, but here's my thoughts, right? So if I am registering a patient, how
Mm-hmm.
do I go about registering a patient? What do I see as part of my page flow from that standpoint? So you have patient data here. So you are searching for a patient, but then what is the next step? Once I search for a patient, what if once I find a patient, where do I go? Kind of like high level, right?
Okay, okay. So does
So
it mean
I'm
if you
going to
have,
select the existing patient,
uh-huh.
and then I'm going to do certain other activities. But if I don't find a patient, I'm going to go register a new patient, and I'm going to end up
Oh,
on the
I get it.
demographics. Then I'm going to enter their insurance information. I'm going to
Got
enter,
it,
fill
got it,
out
got
other
it.
things
Yes,
and so
yes,
forth.
yes, yes, yes.
So
That,
that
yeah, yeah,
completes
that
the
makes
whole process for registration.
okay. Then let me ask you this, Herschel. So since we're focusing on registration, would it be okay to not give these extra details on the schedule or the timesheets just for this page if I'm talking to the user?
Um,
So,
so
the
yeah, go ahead.
the way you should do it, right, is um, you take one activity, you
Yep.
finish that thread completely
Yep.
before adding another thread, right? And when you start adding another thread, then the patterns will emerge. And that's when you
Mm-hmm.
to say it, right? As Herschel talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are multiple ways you can search from it, right? But do you
Mm-hmm.
need a separate search page for every time? You probably don't, right? So you build it out for one particular thread, like registering a patient, build out the entire flow,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have a conversation. Okay, now let's add another task that the nurse will perform. Can you show it based on this? How would she or he will go about doing that?
Got it, got it, got
In
it.
the most, if it's a larger project,
Mm-hmm.
you might have two BAs working on it, and
Got
one
it.
BA is working on registration, second would be taking on assessment or immunization or something else,
Uh-huh. Oh,
right?
got it,
So
got it.
you guys are doing in parallel, basically.
Yeah, okay,
Yep,
okay.
yep.
So from workflow perspective, when Dilip mentioned that you do one cycle and then you have additional activity you add.
Mhm.
So where would you normally do? Do you create one more page for it, or do you just go down and start making the other thing? How does it look visually?
Oh, we visually, so this is a good diagram to have, but once we take a look at the tool, that's where you're going to
Uh-huh.
document everything.
Okay, I see what
So
you're saying.
there is
Okay,
another tool called Azure DevOps or Jira. Those are the development lifecycle tools. That's
okay,
where all the business analysts will document all the artifacts. Now
okay.
these are high level. Okay, this
Got it, got
is
it.
so your context diagram, your business process diagram, stakeholder maps. Those are kind of like high level. That gives you overall idea about the systems and
Got it,
processes.
got
But
it.
now we are drilling down to the building the system. This is realistically focused on the what functionalities, capabilities we are building within the system, right?
Got it. Got it.
From those, so you need to have those initial diagrams. Okay,
Yes.
you need to have this. You need to have this high level type of diagram as well. But you need to also create the stories ultimately, right? What's your end game here?
Correct.
End game is story. A story will include your user requirements, so which says, as a business, as a PHN nurse, I need to be able to do register a patient by filling out this information, this information, this information, this information, like that. So each individual story, and then you're gonna have mockups, screen mockups, that how the nurse will do that basically.
Okay. I see what
and that ties to the story right there.
Harshal, how is screen mockup different than wireframe?
Technically, I mean, you can call them the same. Mockups and wireframes are same interchangeable terms.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Okay. And my
so
last
what
question,
you had,
sure.
like a screen layout, right? That you had, that is a screen mockup. This is a mocked up. Okay, because this is not a real system, right? But this one give visual clues to the user how they plan, okay, how they will log in, or how they will, once they log in, what will they see? Something similar to that, like a dashboard.
Got it.
From there, they can go search existing patient, register new patient, now form MAF, and so forth. But MAF form is kind of like a part of the new patient registration process. So you don't need that for separate app form MAF, right?
New patient. But then the doctor hasn't, the provider hasn't assessed them, right? To tell them if they are eligible for MAF or not?
MAF is filled out by BCMH doctor, right? For as a referral. So if you look at your process flow, right? Business process, that's why you need to have business process flow identified.
Okay. Yes.
And this is the registration happens within the system as part of by filling out by entering the information that is captured on the MAF form.
Correct. Okay. Got it. The other line. Okay. Sure. Sounds good.
Yeah.
My last question, just clarification. So when we are talking about registering a patient, everything other than that should subside and I should only focus, like, for example, if you talked about stories. So if I were to present my stories, that should only be talking about what protocols I will follow to register a patient. I shouldn't look at the dashboard and, for example, you said timesheets.
Yes, because that's what would be separate. So you can organize, right? You have user stories. Now there is another term called epic as well, right?
I was reading about it. Yes.
Agile world, there is a term called epic. It's nothing but a grouping of all the stories. So for that module, okay. So think of patient registration module, and you have all the user stories tied to the patient registration. So in
large body.
it's basically just a smaller chunk of functionality that developer can implement. The stories wise.
Yes.
So that's all it is. So but you need to have relevant stories. For the registration tied to the patient registration only.
Okay, so this should be patient registration only, and when it comes then dashboard, then that will be a different set.
There you will have another 50 stories, another 50 user stories with that.
Perfect.
Very so that's helpful. A map. That's how you can organize your map. Okay.
Yeah, this makes sense. Yes.
Okay. So I mean, so it depending on how you think.
Sure. No, I understand.
Okay, how do I organize my stories?
Yes. This gives me a lot of clarity. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So let's go back to Kusal. Did you have anything on your front?
I do. It's a bit too simple. I can show it, but I wrote down a lot of notes in terms of what I need to add, because I think it was very good clarity for me to understand that, you know, I need to make sure it's expansive enough for the developers. So this is what I had. But I don't think this is good enough. I think it needs to. I wrote down notes about expanding the threads more. You know, what it should be included, what should be visible, fillable, more detailed chunks so it's fluid for the dev sprints, adding the assessment module. So if we want the search to be available with every essentially with every module or area that's dealing with a patient, would it be relevant and beneficial to have a search bar available on every patient page? Something that is just locked in, and at the top it's locked on the system where it's always there, so they can always search a patient no matter what page they are on.
I mean, you can always recommend, but when it comes to, it's more like a design decision, how they will
Okay.
get to it. But you're
Okay.
from the functionality standpoint,
Mhm.
whether I'm a service coordinator, whether I'm a nurse, or
Mhm.
or clinic or billing guy, right? I
Mhm.
need to find the patient first.
Right. Right.
Then
Okay.
I can do my activities. Without patient, there
Mhm.
is no activity for me.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay, if they want to issue the bills, payments, they have to go into patient and then issue the
Mhm.
bill from there. Right. So same thing.
Right.
If I'm a nurse, I'm conducting assessment. I need to have patient first in the system.
Right.
Then
Okay.
then only
Okay.
I can do assessments and all those things.
Okay.
So that can be a common functionality, but every
Mhm.
flow should include that. So
Okay.
if you
Excellent.
have those story maps, right? So
Mhm.
story maps, or if you are building a page flow, you need to have
Mhm.
that search built in. As a
Mhm.
clarification, I'm giving you guys example, right?
Mhm.
But I provided you walkthrough of how I'm going to register a patient if I'm a nurse. Same
Mhm.
thing will apply to the initial assessment. Same thing will apply to the other modules as well. Now that module developer may not build 5 different modules, search modules.
Mhm.
They might just build one module no matter what, and they will program it such a way so that that is accessible from as part of the process uh, during the registration, during the initial assessment, and so forth.
Mhm. So one of my thought processes is rather than I understand that we want to search for the patient or find the patient first, right? Would it be
Mhm.
beneficial that when we're moving from a moving into a module, if it displays that provider's active clients?
What do you mean client?
Sorry, I didn't mean client, patients. Sorry. If it displays their active patients that they are working with, if not, we can just keep the search there. That's fine as well. I didn't know if it would be beneficial for them to have a list of their active patients in front of them as well.
So think through it. I mean, there could be thousands of patients. How would you? Because in the
Mhm, mhm.
remember, this is for
This is
county,
a
and
wider
county
scale,
might have
right?
like 10 million people living in their
Right,
county,
right. Okay,
and
okay.
maybe million people are their patients. Who knows,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That
right?
makes sense. Okay.
So they need search capability to
Mm-hmm.
for that one, for finding a
Okay,
patient.
excellent. So we can then plug because I have a search patient module, right? So we can plug that search patient stream. Of course, I'm going to expand on this stream
Okay.
once I refine it, but we can add that search patient stream on pretty much every module that's dealing with the patient, right?
Yes, but you need to make sure your process, you have whatever wireframe or whatever the flow that you put
Mm-hmm.
in, page flow, right?
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that fits into your flow and
Okay.
what is the next thing that you are doing
Okay.
as well, right? So we only talked about the patient registration. We did not talk
Right.
about assessment or scheduling
Right.
encounter,
Right.
but you get the idea that you need ability to search it, whether they are
Mm-hmm.
accessing patient encounter directly from the dashboard
Mm-hmm.
or basically they need to have a patient first.
Okay. Excellent. All right. So I'll refine this for next time.
Yep. And stick to the same terminology,
Mm-hmm.
registration, patient registration. Like if you have different diagrams,
Mm-hmm.
and if you are using certain terms, so just stick to the same terms,
Okay.
because
Okay.
otherwise it's user will not know. Okay, what do you
Right.
mean by here versus there?
That makes sense. So
Yeah,
standardize all this terminology. That way
standardize. Yeah, terminology.
it's all the
Yep.
same. We're not confusing or changing anything.
That's
Okay.
correct. That's
Okay.
correct.
Excellent.
Okay. All right. Anybody else has anything on this one? Okay. Let's move on then to see. So wireframes. I think Sana, we saw your wireframe, right?
Yes, yes.
So I think you had the only for the dashboard. Do you have anything else for the registration? If not, let's just focus on the registration, right? And see what wireframes you guys can come up with.
Sure, I'll be prepared next time. I just had 2 pages. One was just to log in, and
I
that was
see.
it. So
I see.
I'll finish
Okay,
that
that's fine.
cycle.
Yep.
Sure.
That's fine. That's a login activity. That's second one is more like a dashboard. But I think we need to have more based on the user stories, right? Once you break down those stories, like a in the see we'll see what you guys come up with. Okay.
Sure.
We'll going forward, we'll strictly focus on registration because we
Got
want to
it.
make sure you get everything end to end for
Got it.
registration.
Oh,
Okay.
that makes
Got it.
sense.
Kushal, do you have anything
I-
wireframe wise?
yeah,
Anything?
I'll pull up my
Okay.
patient registration
Yeah.
wireframe. Okay. So in the wireframe I all the wireframes I have the standard login procedure. So I
Yep.
have the
Yep.
login page. If it's not recognized, they'll try
Okay.
again, forgot username, password.
Okay.
What will display once they have the correct information. Now,
Okay.
because of the nature of the system, would it be beneficial for if they're resetting their password and their ID and email is not recognized? Would it be beneficial for them to have a certain amount of attempts? That way, for safety of the system and integrity of the system,
Yeah.
that's
Most of the
there.
HIPAA system allows maybe
Mm,
3 to 5 times, and then they
okay.
will lock out the account, right?
Okay.
But that's the conversation as part of the HIPAA implementation. You
Hmm.
can implement that rule
Okay.
as part of your system. Now, I think you created different wireframes, right?
Yeah.
Most of the time, you don't have to
Hmm.
show all the different scenarios in wireframes.
Ah, okay.
It's
Okay. I
just a
see. I
single
see.
screen layout because these are
Oh, okay.
mockups. Remember, right? These are
Right.
mockups. Mockup meaning
Okay.
this
Yeah.
gives
Where
a
I
look and feel. That's all. But you
right.
can
Right.
document. So if you create a login user story
Mm-hmm.
and you can document different business rules,
Mm-hmm.
if they supply different invalid credential, if
Mm-hmm.
there is you can say basically lockout system after five attempts, invalid
Mm-hmm.
attempts, and so forth.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so you just create a one screen mockup, maybe
Mm-hmm.
two, not more than two. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
if you have to show different state of the system,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, you don't create more than two.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So in this case, for the register patient wireframe, this is the specific page. So I would just have this
Yep. Yep.
displaying, for example.
Yes.
Okay.
So this is for, so you have it for demographics, right, and the
Mm-hmm.
insurance.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have upload, as we said, there is no upload.
Right, right. So I would have to change that to, but we also
Actual
discussed that
different
if,
screens for different
mm-hmm.
MAF form information.
Okay, okay.
So
So
if you
in
look
that,
at MAF, right, what sections are there?
mm-hmm.
So you have demographics, which includes the first name, last name, date of birth, social security number. Now you ask, this one will generate a question, contact name, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it going to be same every time or is going to be different? Do we want to allow for multiple contacts for a patient and so forth?
Right. So then would it be beneficial to just have a primary contact? Because each patient, I guess in an ideal world, I understand there may be different scenarios for each patient, but each patient essentially would have a primary contact listed or a primary contact available. So that was my thought process in terms of putting in the contact name and the contact information
Okay.
is having a primary person that we can that the nurses can contact
Okay.
for any situations they may need to contact that individual for.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now you need to think about, is that infinite relationship are we offering, or is going to be parent, guardian, maybe brother, sister, spouse, something like that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
right?
so my
So you
thought
can,
process is maybe having a drop down, right, which has a finite
yep,
options for the relationship. That way they don't need to type it in. They'll just click on, we can put like a button on the side over here and it'll bring a drop down and they'll be able to click on one of the finite
yep.
options.
So if you do that, right, then you probably want to
Mm-hmm.
show that drop down in the mockup.
Oh, okay.
Right?
That
Instead
makes
of a
sense. Yeah.
box, you want to show
Mm-hmm.
it a drop down. Then that's where some of the tools like Visio or Lucid Chart will help for
Right,
creating the
right.
mockups.
That makes sense. So
Yeah.
in that case, if when we're creating those mockups and we want to show the drop downs,
Mhm.
so for example, I use PowerPoint here, right? Would I go ahead and
Yep.
have all the drop downs showing?
Yeah. I mean, you can. I mean, that's why. I mean, those tools has this built-in controls.
Right.
So you can just drag and drop and you fill out maybe a couple of values to show how it will
Okay.
look from the user
Okay. So
standpoint.
maybe I'll switch to I have access to
Yeah,
Lucid,
yeah.
so maybe I'll switch to Lucid. That way I can make more detailed wireframes.
Now here is for the insurance.
Mhm.
Now you need to think through. I mean, are we allowing only one insurance for a patient?
Okay.
So
Okay.
those are some of the things that you need to think about. Okay, when you are creating the actual mockups, you need to ask the
Mhm.
users. Okay,
Right.
from that standpoint. So that's why we want you to work through and see, and then we can discuss, right?
Right.
This type of things as well.
So when the nurses are working with the patient, now those patients, like you mentioned, they may have multiple insurances. So
That is correct.
would it be more relevant to incorporate the ability to add
That is correct.
insurances?
That is correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
Okay. So
Yeah.
maybe it might be beneficial to have like maybe a plus button and insurance next to it. That way they can click that and add another insurance.
All you want to show in a mockup is the ability to add multiple insurance.
Okay. So just
Because
click.
your
Okay.
mockups, so the developers will take a look at it and they might say, okay, we're not going to implement this way. All they need business needs multiple insurance add capability, and we're going to provide that, but we're not going to implement this way. So they might throw out the way you have implemented. But
Right.
all you want to highlight in the story is um, while registering a patient, they need ability to enter multiple insurance,
Okay.
basically. So, and you can show that in insurance, basically, however you want to show it, right? As a list at the bottom that existing insurances, and they can add new ones.
Okay.
So yeah, something like that.
Okay.
But keep it
That
simple. I
makes
mean,
sense.
there is no complex thing, because there's some of these mockups will be thrown away. It's mainly communicating with the user. Okay. So that's the whole goal.
Okay. Excellent.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And there is no upload forms, right? Because everything will
Right.
be
Right.
entered manually. So yeah,
Okay.
you need
Okay.
to
So
have
everything
different
entered
screens.
manually. So
Yep.
we'll have like
Yep.
the manual. Would it be
Yeah.
beneficial then on a patient profile to have tabs where it has
It's
each area of the profile that can be manually filled?
that's how, I mean, folks will do it when they implement it, either tabs or some other way. And that's why you want to focus on, okay, one story. So you have you're gonna revise your story map, right? So you're gonna
Yep.
have a story map call as part of the pay for registered patient. You're gonna have fill out patient demographics as part of the MF from the MF, right? Second one would
Right.
be add insurance, basically, like that. Third one could be something else.
Okay.
And your mock-up will tie to the story, and that will show only insurance section.
Okay.
You don't
Understood.
want to show
Okay.
everything. Your
Right.
demographic story will show the first name, last name, and top portion only. Okay, so you
Okay.
want to have the separate mockups for separate stories, only showing those
Okay.
sections.
Okay. Okay.
Relevant
That makes
information,
sense.
right? Yeah.
Right. Okay. Thank you for that clarity.
Yeah. Okay. Any question on this one? I know we went through very quick. I mean, these things. I just want to make sure everybody understands how the mockup fits in, right? As part of the stories and story maps and so forth. Mockups meaning the wireframes.
Yes, it was clear.
Okay. Jayshree, I think you got some catch up to do. But
Yes.
Girija, I think
Yes.
you probably want to spend some time on this one as well, because this
Yes.
is important part. This is what you guys will ultimately. This is where you will end up. Okay, from the business analyst standpoint, so you will
Sure.
analyze all those things up front, and this is where you want to be at the mockup level, stories level, so that you can hand it over to the developer to start implementing it.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So I would suggest you spend time on it between now and Saturday, right? Because Saturday we're gonna take a look at few other things, and I think we might give you some time on this one as well, some of the exercises as well, and see how it goes. But definitely, please have this some of these things ready, at least patient registration.
Sure,
portion.
sure, absolutely.
So that we can we will take a look at the tool as well, so that how the stories will fit in over there, and what things go those tools.
Harshal, you mentioned a word called Jira. What does that mean?
Jira is a ALM tool, application lifecycle management, or SDLC management
Uh-huh.
tool. That's what everybody will use in IT. Same
Okay.
thing, Azure DevOps is another tool, which is another popular tool. So like companies
Okay,
like
okay.
JP Morgan, they use
Mhm.
Jira.
Okay.
But lot of mid-sized to small-sized companies, they use Azure DevOps,
Okay.
which is from Microsoft.
Got
And
it.
Jira is from Altasian. There is another company. So,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
So
Okay.
you
Thank you.
need to get familiar with certain tools. But again,
Uh-huh.
tools are tools. Okay, whatever the techniques you are learning, that's
Right,
nothing
right,
to do with
right.
the tool.
Got it.
That's only for documentation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, how you want to document and what you will document in the tools, so that developers can take it from there.
Got it.
Okay. Anything else you want to add, Dilip, here?
So just only one thing, right? Just
Yeah.
understand the iterative process here as you go through it, right? So all of those pieces that you're collecting it should generate the questions that you should ask users to clarify, and that is going to drive you to write the detailed story level information that then developers can take it and implement it.
Yep. That's correct. That's correct.
Okay.
So I think what we'll do is on the Saturday, right, Dilip, as part of the tools, catching up with the tools as well. They will document certain things, and we'll review what they have as well at the same time. So that
Yes.
makes it yeah.
So what I would advise between now and Saturday, focus
Mhm.
precisely on patient registration, get the story map, get the process diagram, get the high level page flow, and your questions ready so that you will be able to start, like it's kind of populating the stories as you go through it. And as Harshal said, get the complete end-to-end view of one module.
Makes sense. Okay.
Okay.
Yep, and then no paper. Please start using the tools. So yep, if you haven't opened account, I would suggest go and open the account
Okay.
with the Lucid chart or some whatever tools we sent out, right?
Okay.
And work with them. Yep. Any other question, clarification from anyone? Anyone has anything?
Good, right?
Just a reminder to everybody, right? This weekend, we're going to meet both Saturday and Sunday.
Yep, that's correct.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yep, both Saturday and Sunday. Yep. And I think there'll be quite a bit of hands-on you guys will be doing. Very few lecture type of activity on Saturday and Sunday, both days. So, yeah. Okay, then we don't have anything else from my standpoint. I mean, I don't, Dilip, if you have anything, if not, then we can call it a day here. Yep.
No, I think we made a good progress collectively. Like I've seen some good artifacts coming out, Kushal, from you as well as from Shana. And I'm pretty sure Girja, you and Jayshree will probably do the similar. You have a clarity now. So let's just keep up the work. We'll start bringing it all of those pieces together when we start writing the stories.
Yeah,
Sure.
sure, sir.
All right.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Then see you on
We'll see you on
Saturday morning.
Saturday. Okay.
Yep.
Thank
Take care.
you
Bye-bye.
all.
All right.
See you
All right.
Thank
Bye.
you. Yep.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.